rational selectors. So in the rational selectors, what is a descendant selector, how to define descendant selector, and how we can configure child selector, what is difference between child selector and descendant selector, and how to write the child and descendant selectors. So child selector uses generally an greater than symbol, parent-child hierarchy. It will apply to direct child, and descendant selector will apply to all childs, all childs. Another option is we have adjacent sibling. We have another adjacent sibling. Generally, adjacent sibling is nothing but it defines the elements, it defines effects to an element which is specified immediately after the current element. That means it defines effects to an element, so which is specified immediately after the current element, after current element. That's what actually current element, after the current element. So that means it is not parent child, it is one below another actually. So it is not a parent and a child, it is actually so one below another. That means one below another, one adjacent to another actually. So, and very important is it will apply only to the first adjacent element. It will apply only to the first adjacent element. Usually adjacent selectors are defined in this way. So technically how we define adjacent selector is we have the first element, and we have to define B and adjacent element plus adjacent element. So you have to define the element and its adjacent element. It is defined with plus, and what effects you want for that, you have to configure that effects. You need to define those effects. That is adjacent sibling, how you can configure and work with adjacent sibling. That means immediate, not inside it, just adjacent to it. That means beside it. So that means, for example, so here we have options like we have heading. So we have some HTML elements. So in this we have para 1. So we have like para 2. So we have like para 3. So para 3. So these are the options we have. So like para 4 options we are having like this. Now important is in this hierarchy generally. So if you want to apply the effects for paragraph under this heading, not inside the heading, under the heading actually. That means you defined here. So heading 2, and I defined a space paragraph, heading 2 space paragraph. So, and I am applying some color as red. So that means you are trying to apply here. So parent-child hierarchy here. Now, so heading and paragraph, that is the parent-child hierarchy. You can see it's not working. Why? Because paragraphs are not child elements of heading. They are adjacent elements of heading. They are not the child elements. They are the adjacent elements. They are not child elements. They are adjacent elements. So generally, to apply to the adjacent element. So we have to define here plus. We have to define plus. That means it will apply to the adjacent paragraph. That means only the first paragraph. It will apply only to the first paragraph. So the adjacent, only one option, it will apply to the first paragraph. That's how we generally define. So define the adjacent sibling actually. Example, this is the example for adjacent sibling. So we have a general sibling also. We have general sibling. General sibling is nothing but it actually defines effects to all elements, so which are specified after the current element, so that means adjacent sibling will apply only to the first one. General sibling is defined with a tilde symbol. We define general sibling with a tilde symbol. Then this is going to apply to all the adjacent options. That means all the adjacent. It will apply to all the adjacent. That is what actually general sibling is. That means in the general sibling, what we actually define is, so we have to syntactically define the first element. So first element and tilde. So the last element, the adjacent element. So that means it will apply to all adjacent elements, not only the first element. To apply only to the first element, we use a plus. To apply to all, we have to use this tilde symbol. It will apply to all adjacent elements. It is going to apply to all adjacent elements. So that is what actually, so we have rational selectors. So in the rational selectors, we are having three important options here. We are having four important options here. We have descendant selector. So that is child selector. Descendant and child selector are both parent and child hierarchy. Actually, they are both parent and child hierarchy. Adjacent sibling is nothing but adjacent sibling and general sibling. These are nothing but they are not parent child. They are related to one another. They are related to one another. That means one below another, one after another. That is what actually adjacent siblings are. These all comes under the rational selectors. Comes under the rational selectors. How do we define the rational selectors and use them? So now you have another category, that is attribute selectors. So we have attribute selectors also. What technically attribute selectors are and what is the purpose of these attribute selectors? Actually, you should know that several elements in HTML are presented by using attribute of tag. So they are presented by using attribute of tag. For example, like we have input. So suppose I want button, then we have to use type is equal to button. If I want radio, then input. So type is equal to radio. That means several elements are not presented by using the tag name. So input is the tag, but the type will decide whether it to be a button or to be a radio or to be a checkbox. That means if you want to access a radio, you cannot access input. You have to access input type is radio. Input type as radio. That means we have to apply. So through attributes, that means actually type is attribute. Technically type is attribute. We have to apply effects for a tag based on its attribute and value. That means we have to apply effects based on attribute and value, not by using the tag name directly. So in that case, syntactically, how you define attribute selector? So attribute selectors will define in this way. Generally, we have a tag name. We have a tag name, and the tag name will have an attribute. We can directly define the attribute. That means if the tag is having this attribute, you can apply some effects, or you can write like this also. We can use tag name, and we have attribute is equal to value. If attribute is matching with this value, then you can apply some effects. It depends on how you want to configure. That is what actually attribute selectors. Technically attribute selectors, defining the attribute selectors. Let's see one simple example how we can manage that. So how you can configure and define the effects here. So for that, suppose I am taking here, attribute means it can be any attribute. Class is an attribute, ID is an attribute, right? So SRC is an attribute. All these are attributes only. Align is an attribute. So it doesn't mean that type is only attribute. You can use any attribute. So we will see. For example, suppose we have a form, and in the form, I have a data list with a data term as name, and data definition as input type is equal to text. Input type is equal to text, and the data term is password, and here we are defining data definition. Input type is equal to password. Okay, and we have some button. So below this we have input type is equal to button, and button have a value like say register, like something option we have defined here. Now usually what happens, I want to apply effects for these controls. So then what I am doing here, I am writing input here. I am writing input. So input, I set here background color. So background color. So some light green like this. And you can see that actually all are input only. So button is input, text box is input, password is input, then it will apply for all of them. It will apply for all of them. We need to apply only for button. So that means we need to apply input where type is button. In that case, generally what you can do is we can use the attribute selectors. And attribute selector usually is defined in this way, input. In the square brace, you have to define attribute. Attribute is type. Input type is equal to. What is the input type? Input type is button. If input type is equal to button, then only this effect should apply. Then it will apply only for button. Suppose I want to apply for password, input and attribute is type is equal to password. If input attribute type value is password, then we will put some background color. So background color as suppose light pink, something like this. And only for the password it will apply that. If I say input, it will apply everywhere. If I say input, it will apply everywhere. So based on attribute and the value, you can apply the options. So we can apply the options based on an attribute and value. But actually, we can directly define the attribute name also. We can directly define the attribute name. So for example, this is an example of attribute and value. This is an example for attribute and value. This is an example for attribute and value. Example for attribute and value. That is the basic example of attribute and value. And let's keep this example here. That is the example for attribute and value. Now, suppose if you want only attribute, you can use only attribute also. For example, only attribute. Only attribute also you can configure. So that means, for example, so I am defining here some paragraphs. Let's clean up. So I am defining some paragraph. So this is para 1. And we have another paragraph, that is para 2. So some paragraphs are there, para 3. But in these 3 paragraphs, only one paragraph is having an ID P1 or P2. Suppose we have another paragraph, so para 4. So para 4. And here the important is, technically here the important is, wherever the paragraphs are using ID as an attribute, for those paragraphs I want to apply, because ID is not same, ID is different, but ID attribute is there. So that means you want to apply for the paragraphs that have ID and don't want to apply for the paragraphs that doesn't have an ID, right? Because if I write P and ID is equal to P2, it will apply only for the second one, but I will simply put attribute name. This means that wherever the paragraphs are there and wherever the paragraphs have an ID value may be anything, but if they have ID, then it will apply this effect. You can see it is applied for second and fourth paragraph because the second and fourth paragraphs are having ID. The second and fourth paragraphs are having ID. That is the reason it is going to apply that ID. That is generally, so depending on that reference, so whether it is having that property or not. So we can, attribute selectors can be defined. This is based on only attribute. Let me give you this example also. This is based on only attribute. So you don't need to match with attribute and value. Actually, you can do in another way. Actually, attribute selectors can be defined with conditions also. Attribute selectors can be defined with conditions. Conditions means effects are applied. Actually, effects are applied only to attributes that match the given condition. So that means you can define conditions also. Generally, how conditions are defined, actually you are writing here. So generally you are writing here equal. You see in the attribute you are here we are writing equal. So type equal button. Type equal button means, so the type should match with the value called button. Equal means it should match. So not only equal, there are other conditions also you can define. So how you can specify the conditions, how you can manage the conditions. For example, see, we can handle the conditions, we can define the conditions. How you can manage the conditions? How do we configure and manage the conditions? Actually, we can have condition, so and purpose. So condition and purpose. And what is the condition and what is the combination? So condition and purpose here. Actually, conditions we can define in several ways when you are defining the value. Generally, what we have done is condition. We have written like this: attribute is equal to val. So that is what we have written actually. That means what it happens is, so equal. So here equal, you know that equal specifies that it should so it should be exact match. Equal specifies that it should be exact match. So that is what we are doing. That means it should exact match, then only it will work. It should be exact match. For example, so suppose I will give you, already we have seen this, the previous one was using equal only. Suppose I'm having some para 1, para 2. So currently I am showing you how they work. Later we will implement in several examples. First we need to understand what they are actually. So suppose we have some paragraphs, and the first paragraph is having a class called para effect. Okay. Second paragraph is having a class. So it is having a class called suppose effect. Suppose I will just define as para. Okay. Third one is having a class called, so it is having an option called effect para. It is having effect para. And fourth one is having a class called effect. This is how we have the names configured here. The class names are defined in this way. When the class names are defined in this way, and I want to apply the effects, so that means here, you see effect is used in 3 locations. And I am writing here. So wherever paragraph is there with a class attribute as effect, is a class attribute as effect. Paragraph with class attribute effect. I already told you, you can use class, you can use type, you can use source, href, anything, height, width, anything. So you can use any kind of attribute. Now, if class effect, so if it is matching with equal means if it is matching with effect. If it is matching with effect, then you have to apply the color red. Now tell me for which paragraph the red color will be affected. For which paragraph the red color will be affected? Which paragraph the red color will be affected? We are saying equal. Equal means it should be exact match. It should be exact match. Am I right? It should be exact match. That means obviously it should work for exact match is only one now. Do you know what is meaning of exact match? Exact match means it should be exact, only that, not anything else. That means it should apply. It should apply only for fourth paragraph. Am I right? Right? It should apply for fourth paragraph, right? Good. Yes. So that is exact match. That is exact match. That is how we define the condition. So equal is the condition for exact match. Equal is the condition for exact match. Right. So we have another option. So another option, we can configure attribute. Attribute. Caret is equal to value. Is equal to value. So it is match. It is value. Now caret equal to. We learnt already we learnt about meta characters. Can you tell me what caret symbols represents? What caret symbol represents? Caret and a dollar. We learnt in meta characters now. Yeah, good. Bro, that means it is starting with. Am I right? Very good, right? It is starting with. That means caret indicates that it refers the value. It refers the value starting with specified. Starting with specified term. Understood? Starting with specified term. That means now what happened here? I am using here caret equal effect. Caret equal effect. Now tell me. So for which paragraph it will apply? For which paragraph it will apply? It will apply for third and fourth paragraphs. Am I right? Because fourth paragraph is also starting and ending with same na. Right? That means it will be applied for third and fourth paragraphs. Am I right? Right. So that means this is going to affect third and fourth paragraphs. Third and fourth paragraphs. That is what actually start with. So that is defined as a start with. Okay. Another option here, so we can define an attribute dollar equal. So dollar equal value. Dollar equal value. What does it means? What does it means? It specifies that good. It specifies that the value ending with given term. Am I right? Yeah, ending with given term. Ending with given term. It is ending with the given term. Right. Now here, if I define, so dollar equal, then for which one it will work? For which one it will work? So it should work for good, right? It will work for last is going to always work, na? That is the start and end, 1 and 4, right? It is going to work for 1 and 4, right? It is going to work at 1 and 4, right? So that means this is going to work for 1 and 4. Am I right? Yeah. So that is going to work for 1 and 4 because they are ending with that specific character. And so if I define attribute asterisk equal, so value, what does this means? What does this means? What does asterisk equal means? What does this means? Asterisk equal, what does that means? So that means asterisk means many occurrences anywhere. It contain. Am I right? Right. So that means it contain. So it contain the term. It contain the term. Right. Right. So that means here what we have to define. So we need to configure. So it matches any position. It matches any position. It matches the term at any location. It matches the term at any location. It matches the term at any location. That's what actually it does. Matches the term at any location. That means here we defined asterisk equal. So where it will apply now? Where it is going to apply? Where it is going to apply the options now? Yeah, it is going to affect all these 1, 3, 4. That's good. It is going to affect 1, 3, 4 because effect is present. Effect is present at 3 locations. It may start with, it may end with, or it may present at any specific location. That means it will display that location. It will configure and display that location. Right. So that is what the attribute options are. And many times we have another option. So we have an attribute. So and we have pipe equal value. So we have pipe equal value. What is the concept of pipe equal value? That means, so it indicates that name starts with the specified term and separated with hyphen. So many times the name is separated with a hyphen. It should start with specific and separated with that. So separated with hyphen. If hyphen separated, then you have to use that pipe symbol. Pipe symbol is for hyphen separated. Actually, so here we are defining not. And this is, you see, it is applying only for the fourth, because fourth is matching with it. Suppose there is an option, suppose para hyphen effect and effect hyphen para. That means a hyphen is used everywhere, but important, it will apply to the third and fourth. Why? Because it should start with and have an hyphen. It should start with and have an hyphen. Start with and have an hyphen. Then in that case, start with specified term and have an hyphen and separated with hyphen. Then it is going to match that and display. So that means which is starting with, so effect is starting. This is also starting and it is having an hyphen also. That means it will match both of them. It will start with and it is having an hyphen. Then it can handle that. That you can manage by using this pipe, That means pipe indicates that it should start with and it may contain an hyphen as a separator. We need to configure that, right? We need to define that. We have another option. We have an attribute. So we have an attribute tilde equal. We have an tilde equivalent value. Tilde equivalent value. Tilde equal is used for name starts with the specified term and contain blank space. For blank spaces we have to use tilde. For hyphens you have to use the pipe symbol. For blank space you have to use this. That means, for example, here, so para effect hyphen is there, and here para, so effect space para. I am defining like this: effect space para. There is space, and I am using a tilde symbol here, tilde equal. That means it is going to apply to which paragraphs? It is going to apply to which paragraphs? Which paragraphs? It should start with and it can have a space. Understood? It can start with and can have a space. Start with and can have a space means 2 and 4, na? Am I right? It is starting with and can have a space. That means it will be 2 and 4. So that is tilde. For spaces we use tilde. For hyphens we use pipe symbol. For hyphens we use pipe symbol. So specially we need these are the conditions. These are the conditions. So in the conditions we have equal, we have start with, we have end with, we have all occurrences, and start with and having an hyphen, right? And what you are, Mr. Basha, so what is the last paragraph? Is it not starting with effecta? Is it not starting with effecta? What I given in the definition? What I given in the definition? It can start with and can contain space. Right. So that means it can start with and it can contain space. That is how actually it has to manage this, right? This is all the conditions that generally we use. These are all the conditions we use by using attribute selectors. This all comes under the category of attribute selectors and conditions in attribute selectors. How you configure attribute selectors and conditions depending on situations. Now another important we are having, so category dynamic pseudo classes. Pseudo classes. Why they are called dynamic and why they are called pseudo classes? Actually, dynamic indicates that the effects can change according to state and situation. That is the first point. Dynamic indicates that the effect can change. The effect can change according to state and situation. Can change according to state and situation. Dynamic indicates that the effect can change according to state and situation. And actually, pseudo is a general English term, you know. Pseudo indicates that it is not referring to exactly the element which is having the same name as selector name. Pseudo means its name is like that, but it is not affecting it directly. That means pseudo indicates, I will show you, pseudo indicates that it is not actually referring, to exactly the element, so exactly the element. It is not referring to exactly the element that you have defined in the selector. It is not referring to exactly the element which is having the same name as selector name, same name as selector name. That means the selector name and the element that it is affecting may differ. That means the selector name. So actually, the selector name, I will show you the selector name and the element name and the element it affects may differ. That is what actually pseudo means. I will tell you pseudo means. Actually, suppose pseudo means syntactically, I will tell here. Suppose I say link. Actually, link means which element? Link element. But no. So that means link means not link element, not link element. So it refers to anchor. Understood? That means we don't write anchor as a selector. anchor as a selector. We will write link as a selector. But actually by that link name, there is a tag. But it is not going to affect that link tag. It is going to affect a anchor element. Anchor element. That is the reason pseudo selectors are used like this. That means we write as a class or we write as class or ID or type. We will write. After that we put a colon and I will write. We have to write a pseudo class. Pseudo class. We have to write a pseudo class and we have to define the effects. I will show you. We need to configure the pseudo selectors. Pseudo selectors means their name says one, but they will affect to something else. Their name refers to one, but they are actually not affecting that. They are affecting something else. That is what actually the concept is. So for that pseudo classes, we have several pseudo classes. What are the basic pseudo classes we are having and how to deal with the pseudo classes? And what are the pseudo class selectors we are having? So usually pseudo class selector. So we have a selector and we have a description. We have a selector and description. So we have selector and description. What are the pseudo class options and what are the description about that, right? How we can configure and handle the description here. Actually, in the pseudo classes, we have a link, colon link. That means it specifies effects for hyperlink. That means it is not effect for link element, it is for hyperlink element. And we have like visited. So that means it defines effects for visited links. Link, if it is visited, then immediately it will change the color. And we have like hover. That means it defines effects. When mouse pointer is over. When mouse pointer is over element. So we have like active. So already we discussed this in general body. So through styles also we can apply. So active means it defines effects. It defines effects when link is in active state actually. And we have focus. Focus indicates that it defines the effects. It defines effects when element gets focus. I will show you examples on that. Focus. We will see the examples for this. How do we handle this? This all comes under the pseudo classes. Technically, how you define, you can write in several ways. Syntactically, how you can write. So you can write element and a colon. You can write link and you can write some effects. Or you can use hash, heading, and you can say hover and you can write some effects. You can apply for an ID. You can apply for class. TXT name. So if it is focus, then what effects you want. That means you can apply effects through an ID or a type or anything. You can configure that. That means depending on how the content is displayed, how the content is configured, so we can add some effects and configure the effects. Generally, so suppose I am defining, let's see an example. Link colors and all these we can change. So we can configure them. Okay, in the body section, I'm just giving a div, and here I'm adding a simple label. I'm defining a label name, and here I'm adding another div. So div. And here I am defining some name for characters, something like this. We are defining. So text box, we will define here input type text. Input type is equal to text. Okay, we are configuring this. Now, actually, so here we will put a span. Beside the text box, we are keeping a span. Name for characters. I am giving that span there. So now observe here. So there is an option here, name for characters. But very important is I want to display this only when the cursor is inside it. Only when the cursor is inside it. By default, I don't want to display. That means which one you don't want to display. I don't want to display the span which is present immediately after the text box. I don't want to display the span which is immediately after the text box. Initially, I don't want to display. Then currently you can write like this. That text box can have a class. So I will put a class as a txt name. Of course, you can give any class or ID. Then here we are writing, so dot txt name. The class means you can access by using dot. And here txt name. Here we are defining the txt name and configuring the txt name. And dot txt name. So what should happen? Dot txt name class. We don't want to apply to the text. We want to apply to the span that contains the text. In that case, what we can do is, here we can define that adjacent. Adjacent means you know now. So we can use plus. I can write plus, right? Adjacent means we can use plus symbol now, right? So that means we are defining plus. And plus, so span. We are configuring that, right? We are defining that. So now what should happen? The span which is present after the text, it should display none. That means I don't want to display. That means the span that is present beside the text box is not displayed. Okay, I should display when it gets focus. Then we write dot txt name plus span. So that means txt name span. So when the span should display, that means when txt name have focus, colon focus. That means when text box gets focus, then the span should display inline. I will put display inline. That means you can see now when I click inside that, it will display. When I click outside, it will not display. I click inside means it gets focus, it will display. I will remove it. That means I click outside, then it is, that means I typed something here and after that I click outside, then it's gone. Again I click inside, the tip will be displayed to you, and click outside, that's gone. That means we are showing and hiding some span. So depending on whether the text box is normal or whether the text box is focus. That means we are applying this focus. So based on that, we are configuring. That means it gets focus, then it will display some warning or some effects, it will display and configure. That's how we are defining. Now similarly, so hover, active, visited, links, so many things we can do. Already we learned in so many occasions also how we can manage them and how we can define them. In several occasions we have defined. When input gets focus, you can do a lot of other things also. So when input gets focus, you can do a lot of other things also. That means not just displaying the span. So we can put some colors, effects and all the options. For example, suppose I am defining, so wherever input is there, input gets focus, I am defining border as a 2 pixel solid, and I said some dark cyan, so something like dark cyan, so and a box shadow, so 2 pixel and 3 pixel dark cyan, something like this. And you can see that whenever so input gets focus, it will get those effects. And I click outside, then it is gone. That means on focus, we are displaying some effects. This is generally done by using the focus. Right? Hover and other options we learned in different occasions. We will keep them. For example, we have we have some links configured here. Suppose we have some links configured here, anchor. So href is equal to some home.html. And here I defined home, a link is there, just put a span and pipe symbol. And here we have defined another anchor. So href is equal to www.flipkart.com, something like this. Yeah, Flipkart cart like this we configured. Now you can see that usually links will be in this way. Now we can put different options. By default, link should not have underline. So then what I can do here, so we can configure anchor text decoration as none. That means it will not have any underline. When mouse pointer is over, then I want underline. Then I can define anchor hover. Hover indicates that when mouse point is over, text decoration will be underlined. That means you see here, when I move the mouse pointer over, then it will get that underline. Hover. You can change the color, you can change the size. I will show you later how to handle animations, effects, and other options, right? So in 2D, 3D animations, you can make it zoom, you can rotate, you can do a lot of things with that. Initially, normal, how to display. On mouse over, how to display. Now, one more option is, if link is active, that means anchor active. If link is active, then color we will keep as red. That means you see now, when I move the mouse onto it and click on it, it is active, then it will be red color. Now come out of it, it is not active. It is now active, then it will be in that color. Link is active, it will display that color. So, but important, if it is visited link, it should be in another color. Normal link should be in another color. A link indicates that normal link color. 1 second, right? Okay, so here I defined link color. So link color I will just give as, by default I want the link color as green. So link indicates the default color. You can see the default color is green. Active color is red. Active color should be red. And if I click on that, actually it is visited or not visited, we can change it. So that means we can change the visited or not visited. So that means link, we have a hover, we have active, we have color, green. So we can do one thing. So if it is visited, so we can define one color. So if it is visited link, visited, so then we can give it green color. If it is visited, we can give it green color. And if it is not visited, it can be in another color. So that means you see I click on Flipkart. So that means if it is visited, because to visit it, we have to write HTTP and everything. So HTTP:// and all we have to write for visited. Now when I click on this, then it is visited. Once it is visited and I come back again, when I come back again, you can see its color is changed. Visited links, active links, and so non-normal links. So suppose you want to change the color for normal link, we can simply say that link. So color as a gray, some gray, and the normal link color will be set to gray, right? On visited, it is not visited because that page is not there currently, then it will be normal. If that page is there and it is visited, then automatically that color will be changed. We have learned this without using these options also we have done. So this is a basic example. So how we can manage the links and the colors and the options. Later we can add on several animation effects also. animations you will see how to handle them, how do we manage them. Here we can understand that. So these are the selectors. We have link, we have visited, we have hover, we have active, and we have focus. These are all the options related to the selectors. Now in the selectors, they have so many other selectors. Now in the selectors, we have pseudo classes. This all comes under the pseudo classes. And after understanding how do we use the pseudo classes, then the next important is target pseudo classes, validation element pseudo classes. Several categories are there that we will see in our next session, right? We will discuss that in our next session, right? And in the next session, mostly by tomorrow, we will finish all the selectors concept. So then we can start designing some examples with whatever we have learned till now. So because there are so many more selectors, we have to see all of them, and it will take so the next session entire time to finish that. And once we finish, then we can start designing examples with the CSS, right? So these are so many. You have to step by step practice and understand these according to the situation. Huh? That we'll see in the next session.